Yes, nice one. Oh, do you like the hat? This is where I got it from. The printer's hat it's called. Wow. Picked it up at a special convention, which I'll tell you about in a minute, but this hat is very simple to make. It's about 10 steps, which for origami is pretty good. So you just get a copy of the, well, New York Times I'm using. I think it was a Boston Herald originally. And you finish with the folds there, and then you've got 3 ways to finish it off. Either as a sort of square hat that I'm showing, or you can make it look like a bishop's hat or a mortarboard. There's only a few extra folds to get those different effects. They're all made out of good quality American newspaper and any other newspapers that are nice firm paper. And it's such a lovely thing to feel and looks good on the head, isn't it? Very comfortable. So I got this from the Gala for Gardner, it was called. The first one I attended in 1996. It was held in Atlanta, and Tom Rogers, who's sadly with us no more, organised a whole range of these every 2 years, usually in April, where you gather together 300 people, all with interests in things that Martin Gardner, who was really the founder of the thing, took a liking to. He was a wonderful man I think he lived up to about 95 years old. He was a good age. But he was well known as a journalist who had a very good style and wrote for Scientific American, wrote columns there on games, and popularised mathematics, magic. He was a very good magician, debunking pseudoscience, origami, all sorts of extraordinary different things he brought together and inspired a huge generation of people in America and worldwide in these subjects, I think. So it's something I look forward to every 2 years, going there. The idea is, which they started quite at the beginning, was to take something with you and make 300 copies of it. I'm prepared mine already. And you give one to everybody, which is very generous, but you get one back from everybody. So you come back with a wonderful range of things. And this is what I gave to Howard Marshall, and this is what he gave back to me, the printer's hat. And the effect is very nice. I've made several of these because I find that such a simple thing to make, and it's so elegant, the fact that you can finish up with 3 different shapes right at the end. I've got a few more of the items which I regard as, near the top of my choice of things from the different gatherings. We've now had about 13, and the 14th is coming up. This is one of the most remarkable. It's called the 10 Cut Pliers, whatever it is. And it's made from a single piece of wood, just a piece of wood, and you have to cut there, and then with a sort of incision type blade, you've got to make cuts inside, a total of 10, ending up, which is astonishing, with a pair of working pliers or pinchers. Extraordinary. The last few cuts has to go in and free the actual wood so it allows it to hinge like that, and then you couldn't take that apart anymore without damaging the wood or without cutting the wood. So it's been made, a bit like 3D printing in a way, it's made actually by those 10 magical cuts to produce it. Wonderful effect. And the guy who gave it out then took it a stage further and made a whole tree of them and things. So a remarkable piece of folk art, I suppose I'd call it. And I think they came out about G4, Gathered for Gardner 4, about in the late 90s. Quite a lot of the stuff is paper, as we've just seen, and this is a very fine one which Nick Baxter gave out. It's a picture of the moon both sides, and it's a folding puzzle. Get off the moon. He's admonishing the astronaut, telling them to get off the moon, disappear, and there's 3 astronauts there. How do you get them off the moon? Just by folding it. And there was a whole evening's work. There's the answer. Look at it. Quite tricky, quite symmetrical too. And when I pull it out like this, you can see where it came from. Oh, there it is. It's those very strange little folds which show the values of the mountain folds all go evenly, otherwise it gets all tied up. And, oh goodness, that's already getting tied up, never mind. But the idea is you have a go at folding that up yourself from that sheet of paper. I used that as my master and made that. So that's been a very pleasant evening's work doing that one. This is something I haven't actually used, but I just like the idea of it so much. It's a tangram set for making those strange shapes that the Chinese invented about a century or two ago. Each of the pieces a geometrical shape, but they're all made of chocolate. Well, I'm afraid it's some 20-year-old chocolate now, so perhaps it's not best to use it. But what a nice concept it is to have pieces made out of slabs, all nicely wrapped up in gold foil, and then try and make all the different shapes you can from, well, there's a few samples of some things you can do with it. But they make some wonderful bird shapes from tangrams, and that's a nice one. Something I couldn't bear to devour at the time. 10-gram chocolate. Here's a very nice one by John Edmark. It's just 2 pieces of wood and a bit of plastic, and you join the pieces together into the slots, and this extraordinary gifted man made this wonderful version of the Wobbler, they call it. Isn't that amazing? The centre of gravity is always the same height above the surface of the table, so it's rather like a cylinder, which wouldn't be so remarkable rolling, but this effect is, well, the other name they gave it is a wobbler, so that's what it does, it wobbles. What a beautiful effect. We've got a very slight downward slope down the table there, which is making it work extremely well. And it's just 3 pieces of material, 2 of wood, Gala Gardner, and it's celebrating that, G4, G4, and a piece of plastic. Wonderful, so that's definitely, I want a goodie. Here's an extraordinary one which I got at the very first gathering by a guy called Dotty, D-O-T-T-Y, I think it was. And he didn't hand them out in the normal sense of putting them into a parcel. He gave each one to individually, and in each case what he had to do was to get the card, find out what your name was, mine was Tim, and then he had a very fine craft knife with which he cut, and he's quite good with it with his hands and with his design work. And if you got it in just the right light, you can see he's inserted the blade and then sort of lifted the paper up at that particular point, just by a tiny fraction of an inch, to make my name appear with a bit of floral decoration around it. Quite an extraordinary effect. I'd never come across this before and never come across it since. I don't know where he gets it from or who invented it. It's something quite extraordinary, but nicked lettering, they called it. Nicked lettering. Beautiful. And personalised too. That was a nice one. I like that. Here's a nice one from a Japanese artist, I think it is. You start off with pieces of paper which you make into these little shapes like that, a bit like concertinas, and you have to have 6 of them, and you've got that sort of L-shaped bit there, and then you clasp them together so they lock like that, and the end result is a little ball, origami balls. It's a modular ball. It's produced by a lovely Japanese chap with the name Pumiyaki Kawahata, and about 20 years ago I think it was. It's reasonably solid too, and to take it apart you really have to squeeze those and push them through, and they've gone in again. So that was a very nice find, and a friend of mine who runs the Origami Society in Britain was able to trace it and find out the origin of it. But that came out of a gathering for Gardner just as a sideline. It wasn't given out as an exchange, but just something that people were talking about. And here's 2 more bits of paper which I much enjoyed. This was a whole sheet given out by one of the ladies who attends, and she's a regular. You've got to fold, you've got to cut it out first of all, and do lots and lots and lots of folds. I think there's a valley folds, and the other ones are mountain folds. The end result, when you put it together and stick the pieces together, is this extraordinary figure. And what's nice about this is it rolls around like what they call a smoke ring. You can actually put your fingers in there and draw it out like that, and it rolls around, and you put the other side back in again. Which, there's the join. I did it with a little staple, and it rolls around and rolls around and rolls around, and opens up, like that bit there where it's got 2 little layers, and that folds back in again like a flower. I suppose if you coloured this, it looked very pretty, very, very pretty, but I like the purity of the white and the fact that it has this flexibility that it's allowed to turn around like a toroidal or smoke ring, round and round, and that's how it started, a single sheet of paper. Extraordinary. And the last one, since I'm stuck on the origami stuff, was this extraordinary piece here, which took me a long time to fold. I had to have a little former in the middle. You'll see it in a minute when I undo it. But there were lots of mountain and valley folds, and you end up with this thing here, with a tight bit here. I haven't quite folded it back again, but never mind. The idea is to undo it, you hold it out like that, and you twist it like that. It turns like that, and when you undo it like that, with a bit of luck, you find inside is what's holding it all together, that thing there. So what a piece that is. A central little piece here, a little plinth there which goes in the middle and it helps to form it, and all the pieces fold and lap around it like that, and it's supposed to be possible to put it back again. So it will only take me a few seconds, I think, or a bit longer, or no, a bit longer than that. Oh well, I shall be here till midnight, I expect. Never mind. Oh, that's gone wrong there too. Yes, never mind. Anyway, it's something like that when it's finished, but never so neat as when I first did it. So some items from the Gathering for Gardner, and we've got one coming up in about a few months' time. I've already got my exchange given out, and I'm looking forward to it enormously. It's a very, very stimulating 3 days in Atlanta, which is one of the highlights of my Not every year, so it's every 2 years, but of my life going to them. G4, G14 coming on.